It really is the mining companies and the government versus the people. I mean, the governments are actually essentially in partnership with the mining companies through those royalty streams that they earn.
We're saying one thing, and there's another side. There's an anti-fossil fuel lobby or an anti-gas lobby saying the other thing, and people are trying to work out, well, who do I believe?
Coal seam gas forums in Barcaldine and Longreach in late April brought together the opposing camps to present their cases. People travelled from around central western Queensland to hear speakers covering topics ranging from the impacts of exploration and production at the property level to the political, economic, social and environmental issues at regional, state, national and global scales.
We have a company that's going to drill an exploration hole on our property, and we've said that we're quite happy for them to drill there, but we still, by the same token, would like to know a little bit more about the industry.
With landholders in various stages of negotiations with coal seam gas companies and communities wondering how their towns and services will be affected, Desert Channels Queensland and the Remote Area Planning and Development Board ran the forums to encourage open discussion of the complex issues.
It's important, I think, we all think, for both this region and the state, that landholders and the community generally actually understand what's involved in this industry, how communities can deal with it, and how they can also help governments manage the development.
Tor McCall spoke on behalf of the Galilee Basin Operators Forum.
So who we are, we're an informal group of 10 coal seam gas companies that were formed about 18 months ago. Each of us, as we started to look at the exploration we were going to do in the basin, needed to get our head into the subsurface and understand water and aquifers and coals. So the two things we really do is the water and the aquifers, and trying to understand those as best we can, and then the interaction and getting our message out, letting people know what we're planning to do.
He gave examples of how the companies have changed practices since the early production in Queensland.
And if the company and the landowner are prepared to work together, they can really optimise and set out a CSG development that is as unobtrusive and fits with the local environment.
Dr Gavin Mudd talked about the environmental risks and lack of data needed to assure safe development.
One of the problems I've found in looking at coal seam gas over the last several years is, although there is a lot of work being done, there hasn't been a good enough independent regulation. There are some CSG projects that don't even monitor groundwater, and yet they still turn around and say there's no impact.
Paul Cleary has written on coal seam gas for the Australian newspaper. In his session, he covered economic issues and government policy.
Unlike Norway, that charges 70% for oil companies to extract their wealth, ours is actually more in the low 30s. Also, we have state governments that I think are really quite weak, and they're absolutely addicted to the royalties, which I think have sort of become a form of inducement that does greatly influence the decision-making process. And this shows what I think is just an absolute tsunami of investment that is being built around the country right now in new projects. So you can see actually in 2009, before we brought in the so-called mineral resource rent tax, which was meant to give the Australian citizens a fairer share, that the amount of new projects has actually doubled. So that new tax has had no impact whatsoever.
George and Judy Gowing have dealt with coal seam gas companies on their property Glenaris in Longreach Shire for nearly 2 decades.
In 1993, when we were approached by Enron, the American company, completely different circumstances to what it is now. We went from Enron to Galilee, and now we've moved to AGL. They've replaced all our grids, access grids into our property. They were all made for 6-tonne trucks 50 years ago.
This is our land, this is our property, this is our water system. We get information from anywhere and everywhere that we possibly can.
A number of the speakers picked up on the issue of royalties for regions.
42% of the Brisbane population supported the money going back to the region where it came from. The new LNP policy is for about 10% of royalties to go back to the regions.
It is still early days in the development of coal seam gas in the Galilee Basin.
Well, what's really unique is you've actually still got mainly an agricultural economy here, whereas other areas closer to Brisbane, like around Chinchilla in the Darling Downs, you've really got mining starting to dominate those areas.
I think it's. I'm very proud that, being the chairman of RAPID, to be able to see the benefits of such a forum.
There's been a good balance of speakers here today. I mean, there's obviously the pro coal seam gas team and the team that has questioned coal seam gas.
They certainly sounded very plausible, and you sort of start to relax a little bit and think, oh, that's good, and they've got a handle on everything. And then Gavin Nudd gets up and says his, and then you think, maybe not.
I think development's got to go ahead because we're an energy demanding society, but we've got to try and do it in the most sustainable way possible.
The industry has really started to realise that there are strategic environmental issues here that are very serious, and so that there needs to be that level of effort put into things to make sure that we don't actually repeat mistakes that we've made in the past.